right, that moves us into our discussion agenda for the evening. Ms. Tucker?
Madam Chair, members of the board, the first item before you this evening is Exhibit G. Just the background here, years ago, our employee handbook was updated to state that all salaries would be paid on a 24 increments. And that is clearly stated in our employee handbook, and everybody I've talked to remembers board policy being changed, but it does not actually reflect that. And so this is just bringing to you the change to reflect board policy to mirror what our current practice is. Right now, we pay all of our employees on a 24 pay periods. We don't offer the option of 20 or 24. And so just want to make board policy consistent with what our practice and what's reflected in our handbook.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Ms. Tucker? All right.
All right.
Are you still with us, Ms. Tucker?
I am
Yes,
still
you
with
are.
you.
All right, moving on over.
Moving on over to Exhibit H. The next discussion item is proposed policy. Our current employee handbook also states that employees will be reimbursed for expenses incurred for approved travel as outlined in board policy and established procedures. There is a line in there in the current policy that states, and this was part of the model policy, so many districts around us have similar policy, but it says lodging will be reimbursed based on receipt. Back in 2023, I believe Finance updated their handbook. There are multiple finance procedures manual that talks about the way travel is reimbursed, and it gets into the details. This is referenced in our finance website, our finance procedures, our travel guidelines also mimic the state's guidelines. That was put forth in Proviso 117.2 back in 2019 to try to streamline travel for all state employees. And so our policies and procedures have reflected those changes, but we haven't updated board policy to reflect that. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to revisit that policy and also look at bringing in our policy that really details out the true policies and procedures that we have in place through our finance manual and through our policies and procedures regarding reimbursement of travel. We have numerous documents that outline how travel is reimbursed based on grants, because each grant is different. Federal grants have certain regulations, state grants have certain regulations. We do need to follow our state travel reimbursement procedures, but also we follow the IRS mileage, which is reflected in the general services or the GSA rates. And so just making that abundantly clear in our board policy that that's reflected in our finance manual as well. So just bringing the policy and our practice in line with each other. So I stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Tucker? Ms. Huddle?
More like a thank you. I appreciate you sending those to all of us, because it helped me, because when I saw that the lodging was being added, I used to work for a federal contractor, and the GSA lodging can be scary. But after seeing the policy and seeing the exceptions, and if you're at a conference and all of that, that was really good to see.
And that's why we would like to add the administrative rule along with this policy that truly outlines what's in our current handbook. Essentially, there's numerous documents on walking employees through, which forms do I need to fill out, how do I need to submit my documentation. So just making sure that that's all reflected in our board policy. So.
All right, thank you, Ms. Tucker.
All right. And I'd like Alan Knotts to come up for our next presentation. Let's see. All right. So, here we go. All right, so our bond referendum dashboard, we want to thank Communications for putting this together. We just wanted to take the opportunity to kind of walk through the process that this is. I think a lot of people see this dashboard and are really excited about seeing things start to turn yellow and hopefully see them start to turn green really quickly. And just wanted to talk through kind of the process that these projects take and the timeline that's going to go into this, and why certain things may stay yellow for the entirety of a project. Things like procurement, and why that is, because there's not just one procurement in many of these projects. There's multiple procurements as you work through different steps. And so hopefully this will shed some light on the entire process and just give you a better idea of what this dashboard will reflect as we move through. So to date, there are 3 referendum solicitations that have been approved and pushed out. We have professional services for the new classroom wings at Lake Murray and Chapin. We have A&E, or Architectural and Engineering Services, for the construction of the new Dutch Fork Elementary School, and then A&E services for the renovation of current Dutch Fork Elementary School into the Rich Lakes Education Center. And so thinking about this from the perspective of what does it truly take to build a school? There's a few different models. You can do design, build, bid, build, or you can do construction management at risk. And so in an effort to streamline this process, we looked at building a school during doing the design, bid, build model.
So as we go through the design, bid, build model, we have about 20 various steps that we have to go through to actually bring students into the building. The first one is to get approval for the actual project, and then we move on through the RFQ process, and that is to get the A&E services. That overall posts for about 15 days. And at the same time, we actually start the OSF process and getting the state involved to go through DOT requirements and the full list of requirements that OSF requires. Then we go through the interview process, then we go through a selection committee, and then we go through the negotiations for the contracts. And that does take a while to go back and forth to get the price where it should be. And then we bring that back to the board for approval. Then we typically have a kickoff meeting with the contractor, and we start going through the overall project. And that could take up to 6 months to get a full set of design documents. Then whenever we get all the documents together, which we call the CDs, then we do an invitation for bid. And then we go with the lowest price. We award the contract. We complete all the permitting, get all the permits and everything in process. And we actually do some of this. It may not be exactly step for step. Some of them all start at the same time. Then we do our groundbreaking ceremony. So as you can see, it's taken us 12 steps just to get to the groundbreaking ceremony, and sometimes that takes a while. Then we start building the structure. Depending on if there's any unforeseen items, it should typically follow the timeline given to us by the contractor. Then once we get to the 80% overhead inspection, once that's completed, then we start ordering the furnishings, the desk, the chairs, all those items. We'll order those. Then once we get the construction's complete, we get the certificate of occupancy from the state, then we start moving in, and then we start bringing all the trucks, and we start moving all the furniture into the building. And then that's when we move to the ribbon cutting ceremony. So, it is a pretty involved process. Lastly, to follow with board policy, we do the closeout commissioning process. If it is design, bid, build, and if we have a construction management group that we put that as a part of their requirements, then we're good to go. If not, then we'll have to go out and bid that process or bid that section out.
And so through this process, you can see there's a couple of times where procurement is heavily involved, and we have a team that's meeting every week. We're working through not just our dashboard, but we are working internally on making sure that projects are staying on track and just trying to be as transparent as possible about this process. We want the voters that voted for this referendum to know that, we are working diligently. We're trying to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. Dr. Ross mentioned today, okay, what are the tariffs going to do for our construction costs? Or they're going to go up. But we are working through these processes as quickly and as diligently as we can, knowing that every day takes additional dollars. So just wanted to be transparent about the process, and hopefully this gives the dashboard a little more context, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Tucker and Mr. Knotts.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? All opposed? And the motion carries 7-0, and we are adjourned. Y'all have a good night.